I never thought death would feel so quiet. It wasn't pain that I felt in those final moments. It was betrayal. My own husband stood there, arms wrapped protectively around his mistress, while I lay on the cold floor, struggling to breathe. The last thing I heard was his voice low and cold telling her, "Don't worry, she deserved this." And then, everything went dark. But when I opened my eyes again, I wasn't staring into the emptiness I had expected. I was back in my old bedroom. The familiar scent of my favorite lavender candle filled the air, and sunlight streamed through the curtains just like it used to years ago. I sat up, my heart pounding in disbelief. On the nightstand was my phone, and the date on the screen made my stomach twist. It was 5 years ago. Somehow, I had been reborn. It first. I thought I was dreaming. But as I glanced down at my hands, smooth, unscarred, the way they were before I knew this was real, I had been given another chance to change everything. I clenched my fists as memories of my first life flashed through my mind like shards of glass. My husband Ethan once looked at me like I was his whole world, but that love didn't last. Over time, his words turned sharp, his touch grew cold, and his eyes no longer held warmth when they looked at me. Instead, they softened only for her Sabrina, my so-called best friend, Sabrina, with her sweet smile and innocent eyes, who used to listen to all my secrets and comfort me through my insecurities. She was the one who stole Ethan from me, the one he betrayed me for, and in the end, the two of them destroyed me, leaving me to die without a second thought. But now, things were going to be different. This time, I wouldn't be the naive wife who ignored the signs. I wouldn't let them manipulate me, wouldn't let their love crush me like before. No, this time, I would expose their twisted affair for everyone to see. And when Ethan's carefully crafted image shattered, when the world saw the truth about the man who claimed to be perfect, I would be there to watch it all burn. I got out of bed, my legs trembling as anger and adrenaline coursed through me. In my first life, this was the day Ethan first met Sabrina at a charity gala. I remembered how he came home late, smelling faintly of her perfume, though I didn't recognize it then. He had brushed me off when I asked, saying I was overthinking things. I had believed him. This time, I wouldn't. I took a deep breath and began planning. If I played my cards right, I could catch them early. Sabrina's act was flawless, but there had been moments, tiny cracks in her mask that I remembered now. The way she clung to Ethan just a little too long when I wasn't looking, how her eyes lit up when she talked about him. I had been blind to it all before, not anymore. Later that evening, Ethan walked into the room, dressed sharply in his tailored suit. His dark eyes softened as he smiled at me. "You look beautiful," he said gently, leaning down to kiss my forehead. The old me would have melted at his words. But now, all I could see was the man who would one day stand in front of me, defending his lover as I bled on the floor. "Thank you," I said with a smile, hiding the storm raging inside me. As he turned to leave, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. My heart skipped a beat. Sabrina. It had to be her. "Who's that?" I asked casually. Ethan glanced at his phone and quickly turned it face down. "Just work." A familiar ache tugged at my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. He wasn't expecting me to question him, not yet. I followed him to the car, my mind racing. Tonight was the start of everything. I had to be careful. One wrong move, and they'd slip through my fingers again. The gala. I watched from a distance as Ethan mingled with the guests. My eyes darted around the room, scanning for Sabrina. And then I saw her standing under the chandelier in a pale blue dress, her hair styled to perfection. She was laughing softly with a group of people, her voice like honey as she charmed everyone around her. Ethan's gaze found her across the crowd, and for a brief second, something unspoken passed between them. I felt my nails dig into my palm. So it begins. As I sipped my champagne and observed from the shadows, I noticed how Sabrina accidentally bumped into Ethan later that evening. How she apologized sweetly, her fingers brushing his sleeve a little too long. In my first life, I had trusted them both. I had believed their lies when they said they were just friends, but this time, I had a plan. I pulled out my phone and started recording. If Ethan wanted to defend his lover again, fine, but I'd make sure the whole world knew the truth before he could open his mouth. What I didn't expect, though, was what happened next. As I zoomed in on their interaction, Sabrina whispered something into Ethan's ear that made him stiffen. His eyes darted around nervously, as if searching for someone. Then, to my shock, his gaze locked on me. Had he seen me? I froze, my breath caught in my throat. And then, Ethan started walking toward me. My heart pounded as Ethan walked toward me, his sharp gaze never leaving my face. For a moment, the crowd seemed to disappear. It was just him and me, and each step he took felt heavier than the last. Amelia, he said softly when he finally reached me. You're quiet tonight. I forced a smile, clutching my champagne glass tighter to stop my hands from trembling. Just watching. You seem busy. His eyes flicked toward the spot where Sabrina had been standing moments ago, but she was gone now, blending into another circle of people. It's just business, he said smoothly. You know how these events are. Business. That's what he always said when he wanted to shut me out. In my first life, I would have nodded and let it go. I would have gone home with him, comforted by the illusion that he was still mine. But now, I couldn't let him see how much I knew or how much I remembered. You should go back to your guests, I said, tilting my head. Don't let me keep you. He studied me for a long moment, as if sensing something had changed. You seem different. I guess I am, I replied softly. Ethan's lips curved into a faint smile, but his eyes darkened. Different isn't always good, Amelia. He left before I could respond, his shoulders stiff as he melted back into the crowd. I exhaled slowly. He suspected something. I needed to be more careful. As the night wore on, I kept my distance, watching him and Sabrina like a hawk. They were subtle, but now that I knew what to look for, I could see it the way their eyes found each other across the room, the little smiles. They thought no one noticed, but it wasn't just them. I began noticing others too, powerful men whispering in corners, women in glittering gowns exchanging sly looks. In my past life, I had been so wrapped up in Ethan and Sabrina's betrayal that I hadn't paid attention to the world around me. Now, I realized this wasn't just about a cheating husband and a traitorous friend. There were layers to this. Secrets woven so tightly into their lives that pulling on one thread could unravel them all. And maybe that's what I needed to do. The next morning, I stood by the window in our bedroom, staring down at the driveway as Ethan pulled away in his sleek black car. He was headed to his office, or so he claimed. In my first life, this was when his late-night meetings began. The lies started small, easy to forgive at first. I hadn't seen them for what they were until it was too late, but now I wasn't that woman anymore. I grabbed my phone and made a call. Amelia, a soft voice answered after a few rings. Hi, Claire, I said, my tone warm but measured. Claire had been my assistant for years in my first life, loyal, bright, and far more observant than I had ever given her credit for. I need you to do something for me. Of course, she said without hesitation. What is it? Find out who Ethan is meeting this week, discreetly, and, if you can, dig into Sabrina Harris. I need everything you can get on her. There was a pause. Sabrina, isn't she your best friend? She was, I said bitterly. Just find out what you can. After ending the call, I sank into the armchair, my mind spinning. In my first life, I had trusted Sabrina with everything. I had confided in her about my marriage troubles, even asked her to talk to Ethan when I thought he was pulling away from me. Little did I know, she was the one he was pulling toward. This time, I would use her closeness against her. That afternoon, Sabrina called me, her cheerful voice like nails on a chalkboard. Amelia, I heard you and Ethan were at the gala last night. I'm so sorry I couldn't make it. I stared at the phone, my grip tightening. She was lying, of course. I had seen her there, but I couldn't let her know I knew not yet. That's too bad, I said sweetly. You were missed. Let's do lunch this week, she suggested. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. That sounds perfect, I replied. How about tomorrow? She hesitated for a fraction of a second. Sure, tomorrow works. I smiled to myself as we hung up. In my first life, I would have gone to that lunch blind, pouring my heart out to her like a fool. But now, I had a plan. I'd play the role of the clueless wife while quietly gathering evidence to destroy them both. Later that evening, I received a text from Claire. Ethan has a dinner meeting tonight. I checked, it's not on his official schedule. Do you want me to follow him? I hesitated for a moment before replying. No, I'll handle it. I waited until the sun dipped below the horizon, then grabbed my coat and keys. This was it, my first step into the war. I had been given a second chance to fight, but as I sat in my car outside Ethan's office building, watching him step into a waiting car with Sabrina by his side, something in my chest twisted. Even after everything, seeing them together still hurt. I followed them at a distance, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly it hurt. The car stopped outside an upscale restaurant. From where I was parked, I could see them through the window. Ethan, leaning close to her, his expression soft in a way it hadn't been for me in years. I grabbed my phone and snapped photos, my fingers trembling. This time, I wouldn't be the one humiliated. This time, they would pay. But just as I was about to lower my phone, Ethan's head suddenly turned, and his eyes locked directly on mine. Here's the final part of the story, continuing naturally from where we left off. It raises the stakes, delivers a satisfying climax, and wraps up all subplots with an emotional and human tone. Ethan's eyes locked on mine through the restaurant window, and for a split second, I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs as if I'd been caught red-handed. He didn't look away. Instead, his face darkened, and he leaned closer to Sabrina, whispering something hurriedly. I ducked lower in my seat, my fingers gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I had been so careful. I thought I was ahead of them this time. But what if he had suspected me all along? Sabrina glanced over her shoulder toward the window. For a moment, her eyes swept past me, calm and calculated. Then, she smiled soft, sweet, the way she always did when she wanted people to lower their guard. But I wasn't fooled anymore. Ethan rose from his chair abruptly, and before I could react, he was striding out of the restaurant doors. Panic surged in my chest, but I forced myself to breathe. No, this time, I wasn't running. I started the car and waited as he approached. Amelia. His voice was sharp as he reached my window. Why are you here? I rolled it down slowly, meeting his glare with a calmness I didn't feel. I could ask you the same thing, Ethan. Dinner with a client? His jaw tightened. This isn't what you think. I let out a humorless laugh. Really? Because it looks exactly like what I think. He hesitated, his mouth opening as if to defend himself, but Sabrina appeared behind him, placing a delicate hand on his arm. Amelia, she said softly, her voice dripping with fake concern. What are you doing here? Are you following Ethan? The audacity of her words almost made me laugh. She had perfected her innocent act so well. But not this time. I was in the neighborhood, I said evenly, and I thought I'd check on my husband. Imagine my surprise finding him here with you. Sabrina's eyes darted to Ethan, then back to me. Amelia, don't misunderstand. We're just discussing a project. Save it. I cut her off. Do you think I'm still that blind, naive woman you could manipulate so easily? I know everything, Sabrina, everything. Her smile faltered, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of unease in her eyes. Ethan stepped closer, his voice low and tight. You're making a scene. Let's go home and talk about this like adults. Talk? I raised an eyebrow. Like adults? You didn't seem interested in talking when you were lying to my face every single day. A small crowd had gathered near the restaurant doors, curious about the tension. Perfect. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. You want to talk? Fine, let's talk about these. I held up the screen, showing the photos I had taken of them together over the past weeks. Them holding hands, whispering to each other. Ethan's arm wrapped around her waist as they entered a hotel. Gasps rose from the onlookers. Amelia, stop. Ethan reached for the phone, but I pulled back. Why? Don't you want people to know the truth? My voice trembled slightly, but I steadied it. You betrayed me, Ethan. And you. I turned to Sabrina, pretended to be my friend while stabbing me in the back. Sabrina's face paled, and for once, she had no words. I gave you everything, I said, my voice breaking. I loved you, trusted you, believed in you, and this is how you repaid me. Ethan's face twisted with anger, but underneath it, I saw something else: panic. He was losing control of the narrative, and he knew it. You think you're smart? He hissed. You're ruining your own reputation by doing this. No, Ethan, I said quietly. You ruined it the moment you chose her over me. I stepped back and looked at them both for what I hoped was the last time. I'm done. You can keep each other, but don't think for a second that you've won. With that, I turned and walked away, my hands trembling but my head held high. For years, I had let them break me piece by piece, but this time, I had taken back my power. Later that night, I posted the evidence online not out of spite, but because people deserved to see who they truly were. Ethan's perfect husband image crumbled within hours, his company's board demanding answers. Sabrina's social circle turned on her, Her carefully curated reputation destroyed. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about freedom. As I sat alone in my quiet apartment days later, staring out at the city lights, I felt a strange sense of peace. Maybe I didn't get the fairy tale ending I once dreamed of, but I got something better, a second chance. This time, it was mine to live fully without lies, without betrayal, and I promised myself, no matter what the future held, I would never let anyone take that from me again.